Hello, VC. So I was getting ready to make a video about some records that I got from Michael Hobson from the Hobson Archive. And I happened to come across two King Super Analogue recordings of Dvorak's Ninth Symphony, New World. And so I just wanted to put them on and listen to them, kind of compare which one I liked better. And then I dug out four more versions that I have. And one of the reasons even for making these videos for myself is that I never listen to multiple recordings of the same piece back to back to back. I just listen to different recordings at different times. And so now that I've started doing this, I think it's really interesting to listen to them one after the other. Dvorak wrote this piece in 1893 while he was the director of the National Conservatory of Music of America. And he is stated as saying this was his American symphony. And compared to his other symphonic works, I would say this is not my favorite, and it does have a kind of American sound, which a lot of that early turn of the century and even a little later, the Aaron Copland stuff, I'm not a huge fan of. And I think it has a little bit of that in here, but obviously it still sounds mostly like him. He had said from interviews at that time that he was inspired by a lot of Native American and African American spirituals. And I just wanted to read one little passage which I found was very interesting about what he thought the future of American music would be. He said, "I am convinced that the future music of this country must be founded in what are called Negro melodies. These can be the foundation of a serious and original school of composition to be developed in the United States. These beautiful and varied themes are the product of the soil. They are the folk songs of America. Your composers must turn to them." And I just think for 1893, that was a really interesting comment on how the future of American music and jazz and rock and roll and all of that was to come. So the first one is this version conducted by Karajan with Berlin Phil. And this is an EMI, his master's voice. This is on, I don't know if you can see it, but the Colored Dog label. This is from 1977. And a lot of the colored stamp recordings are a little hit or miss anyway. And this one has a very mid-hall sound. And in the loud sections, you can really kind of hear the orchestra bouncing around in the hall. It's not great. The quiet sections are really nice. I think it's a great performance of this piece. Really, the low to mid strings is where it really sounds the nicest and the warmest, and as it climbs up, it gets a little bit shrill. One other thing is this is the only record that has 3 movements on one side, so it's also cut a little crammed, and that might be why it doesn't seem as dynamic. All in all, though, a really solid performance and a nice recording of this. The second version is Fritz Reiner with Chicago. This is an original 1958 Shaded Dog. And although the bulk of living stereo records from this period sound really great, some of them don't. And this one, I feel, is one that doesn't sound amazing. It sounds pretty distant for an RCA of that period. I will say, though, that Reiner and Chicago, the performance is probably my favorite out of all of them. It's just so tight and punchy and sharp. And the recording itself has a really beautiful separation and a width to it that some of the others don't have. And where this one lacks is in the volume and the full tutis and the powerful passages. There are certain points in this piece where it's quiet and it gradually climbs up in volume to a full volume. And you can hear the recording as the volume is going up starting to distort and just kind of break apart a little bit. And the loud sections, they're just not there. They're distorted. And this recording really couldn't handle, I think, that volume. But in the quieter passages, like on this version, and I don't know if this is originally in the score, if this is something that Reiner put in, but in the quieter sections, there's one section where I can hear a triangle and some cymbals that I do not hear in any of the other recordings. So this one is good. The performance, definitely listen to this one. For the performance, the sound quality is like, I don't know, like an 8.5 out of 10. The next one is a King Super Analog Japanese pressing of this. And this is Kertész with the LSO. And this is the second version he recorded of this in 1967. And this one, of the two versions, this one is definitely mellower and a little bit slower, which in some of the pastoral sections, it kind of lends itself to being really open and sweeping and beautiful in sections because of the mellowness and a little slowness. This recording, though, of it, this is 1986 King Super Analog. If you look on the back, I'll show video, but a lot of these have the Hobson Archive stickers on them. This recording has really great bass, and like a lot of Super Analog recordings, it's a little dark. The bass is a little accentuated, and I feel like a little of the high highs is rolled off a little bit. The percussion and the brass, though, on this one are awesome. The percussion is great. It's big. It's kind of in the distance, so you can hear it reverberating out. The low strings are nice. It's very dynamic. The louds are loud. The quiet parts are really nice. It doesn't break up as much, I would say, as the Reiner version, but at full power of the orchestra, this is not super clear and defined either. Great version, though. I have many, many, many King Super Analog recordings. Was highly recommended. This version is just a straight Decca repress of that same Kertész LSO. I think it's digital. When I originally found this in a store, it was kind of cheap, and I originally made the mistake and assumed it was a speaker's corner, but speaker's corner never did this. This one is pretty much the opposite of the King Super Analog. This one has super crisp highs. It's kind of trebly, really thin in the bass. It's not as dynamic. It feels a little compressed. You know, the lower couple octaves are really, really light. This one I would probably avoid. There's nothing really great about it. This version is also King Super Analog. This is the Kertész Vienna version from 1961. And this recording is amazing. It sounds so great. Same typical King Super Analog tone in it's a little dark, it's a little bass heavy. It's kind of lacking that super crisp top end. The timpanis though are great. I'm sure they're close mic'd in there. Just really full. And the string tone is so nice and warm on this one. You know, just from the double basses all the way up to the high violin sections. The strings sound so great on this version. This has just a massive wall of sound. It goes out beyond the speakers. The final movement in this is just huge. Fantastic version of this. Out of all of the versions, this next one, which is again the same performance of Kertész in Vienna in '61. This is a 1993 Speaker's Corner reissue, which has the original artwork of the SXL. This is by far the most powerful, the most even. The bass is great. The mid-range is super warm and singing. The highs are all there and crisp. It's super dynamic. And this performance, when you take a little bit of the muddiness out of it and it gets a little more, the transients are sharper, this is a really menacing version of this in the louder and more aggressive passages. The timpani and the drums and everything are even bigger on this and more open. The separation on this one is incredible. So top to bottom, the full spectrum of sound, this one is definitely the best one. I would highly, highly recommend this version over any of the other ones. And, you know, I'm glad I went through my collection and listened to all these back to back. Because the ones that stand out as the best really stand out as head and shoulders better than any other of the versions. So thanks for watching, and next I think I will be back with maybe part one of the records I got from the Hobson collection. All right, bye-bye.